So, Volume 2 of The Adventures of Susan MeeLing, that's me, Scuba Diver Extraordinaire. Volume 2, pages, or chapters, 5 through 9. Written by Reverend Susan MeeLing. I have a few names. Susan MeeLing, Reverend Susan MeeLing, Reverend MeeLing, Lady Dori, Belle, a couple of them. So, yeah. So going into chapter 8, the week after the week in Georgia, because it was a week's time that I had planned for my son, my daughter, and my niece, as well as myself, of course, to be in Georgia, mainly for, you know, my ex-sister-in-law to have time with my children and my niece. I could have gotten to know her, but I pretty much knew all I needed to know about her at the time, to be quite honest. But I was giving her a chance to be realistic. I had set the Florida trip up several months before, and that included the scuba dive at the USS or USNS Vandenberg. When in Florida, after having gone to the Vandenberg, I actually had received a text from Cactus Jack, also known as Jeffrey Kirkendall Jr., his friend that lived in Boca Raton, and she was like, hey, we should get together, and I was like, yeah, no, not after all the stuff that had gone on. And while, I actually did enjoy speaking with her, it wasn't a negative aspect realistically. It was more along the lines of, with the way things went with Cactus Jack, also known as Jeffrey Kirkendall Jr., I really didn't want to deal with that. I wanted to enjoy the vacation. And though we had talked about plenty of stuff that had nothing to do with him, realizing now that, the Gamma 3 gun safe that I mailed may have had that firearm in there. On purpose, obviously, that was supposed to go to Tony Walker Nichols in Oklahoma. Looking back now, that was probably a really good decision. But back then, it was one of those, I just really would prefer to enjoy what's going on instead. As well as, recover, because I had done the scuba dive, but I'll get to that. But again, I did contact the Carrollton Police Department in Carrollton, Texas, and I sent my scuba diving books to the GBI, but I also sent every single book that I wrote in a complete aspect to a few different news organizations. That includes Fox News, CNN, I think MSNBC, but also Angel Moroni's Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, founded by Reverend Joseph Smith, but also the state of Texas, because I was attempting to get books set up as a religion aspect or nonprofit or something. I probably messed up on the paperwork. But during this quarantine time, they have plenty of time to read through all of those books. And I'm not just talking about my scuba diving books, which are included in that. I'm talking every book that I had written or put together, because the first book had some documents and whatchamacallit. So yeah, but I sent individual books to a few different people and organizations and stuff like that. And that includes the Modern Day book, which gives a definition of terrorism, like in not just in one aspect, but in the the physical aspect, the mental aspect, the emotional aspect, the sexual aspect, and the spiritual aspect, for it to be, because the individual stuff that would, essentially be considered as individual crimes, but in a whole culminating factor. And granted, Congress and Senate and all the lawmakers, those guys know how to do that sort of stuff. But if that wound up helping, hopefully so. Hopefully, I know that my writing sometimes is a little bit difficult, and then my issues with technology being what they are. At least giving that for those different areas of stuff to discuss, because they're the ones who got the degrees. I just have the SCUBA certifications and spiritual certifications, and then dominant BDSM certifications. But like they have like the college stuff, and they did all that stuff, and then they've been working where they've been working, whereas I've just been doing my stuff. So, but going back to that, her name was Jennifer, but I would guesstimate that the USPS would have the information on that because of the male aspect. And so I had taken my children and my niece to Cape Canaveral NASA station, and the way I set up the week in Florida was one day would be really, really busy, essentially, like going to NASA, really big trip. And then at Cape Canaveral, and then the next day was something that was, they'd still be able to get to do stuff, but not, as hectic. And then the next day, a big thing and stuff like that. And each day they got to go to a beach and stuff like that, including Coral Castle, which, that place just, between that place and the Montana Vortex, that was fantastic. Beautiful place, beautiful place. It's in Homestead, Florida, which is irony on certain aspects. But I had also taken them out to Key West in the Florida Keys for a dolphin excursion, because as a scuba diver, as one of those, I really don't want to have them swimming with the dolphins in an enclosed captivity type of thing. If they see them, they can see them in their natural habitat. And then, the excursion was much longer. I mean, it was 4 hours instead of just 1 hour. And they got to go snorkeling, and they got to actually see a couple of schools of dolphins. They got to see manta rays and stuff like that. My daughter laughed hysterically because during one of the snorkeling times, because there was one time of snorkeling on a sand dune and then another time of snorkeling where there was a coral reef, and I had to wear the jacket, the flotation jacket, because of safety precautions. But I understand, yes. But while at the surface and stuff like that, she would put her head under the water and she'd giggle because she goes, "Mom, what is that?" I put my head under the water. I'm like, "Oh, that's a parrotfish eating coral." And she started laughing. She's like, "It sounds funny." And I was like, "Yes, I know it sounds funny, but it don't. Coral reefs are important." She's like, "Yeah, but it sounds funny. It's a cute little fish." And I was like, "Yeah, kind of." It's pretty. And then I was like, "All right." And I actually kind of, I made my son, my daughter, and my niece kind of freak out because, they had the life jackets on. And, of course, I had the life jacket on. And I was like, "I want to get closer." I'm really mad that I didn't bring scuba gear, so I'm just going to free dive from the surface. I got about 10 feet from the bottom of the floor, and they're just laughing and giggling, and I'm just like, "Ah," and then swam back up, and they're just like, "Hey," So, yeah, so here's a few pictures. I want to do a little. So, That's one of the butterflies at Butterfly World, or I call them flutterflies. And that's my son, and that's my daughter. And those are some different flowers. There's a little flutterbug. There's my niece Marissa, my daughter Lydia, my son James, my niece Marissa, my daughter Lydia. That's all at Butterfly World. And I put a few pictures in here. So there is my niece Marissa, my daughter Lydia, my son James. It's Marissa, my niece, my daughter Lydia, my son James, and then people I don't know that they were there. My daughter Lydia, my son James, my niece Marissa. And I think I did it. Yeah, oh, okay, I did put some in there. Okay, so that is my daughter Lydia, my son James, my niece Marissa. Don't know who the rest of the people are. That's my daughter Lydia, my son James, my niece Marissa. Don't know who that or that is. Some of the little flutterbys in a entomology case. They were feeding lorikeet birds. So there's my daughter Lydia, my son James. I am a proud mom. I've never denied that. So then that's at NASA, and so that's my daughter Lydia, my niece Marissa, and my son James. And if you go out to Cape Canaveral, or I would guesstimate any area at the stuff like that, apparently you need specialty identification to go. So, but we only had one day anyway. But that would have been cool. But I got to see a bunch of stuff. Well, so there's the Rocket Gardens in front of Cape Canaveral, and there's my son James and my daughter Lydia, and that's Snoopy. I was like, you gotta get a picture with Snoopy. And they were just like, who's Snoopy? And I'm like, oh. There's a few different reasons for Snoopy, but nonetheless. So then, there's my niece Marissa, my daughter Lydia, my son James, and I don't know who the rest of those people are. And then it's my daughter Lydia and my son James inside one of the little spaceships shuttles. And there's my daughter Lydia, my son James, and there's my daughter Lydia and my niece Marissa, and I don't know who that is. Then I took this picture because I was like, oh, that's just really pretty how they have the American flag and then the flag for, I think it was NASA, and then the statue. I liked the way it looked. It was just arranged I'm a little CDO, so I liked how that was. So my daughter Lydia, my niece Marissa, I have no idea who those people are. My son James, my daughter Lydia, my son James, whatchamacallit. And then this I thought was really cool that, people could look at later, like when my son and my daughter and niece would look through stuff and see the wall of that. So just so that it's the Astronauts Memorial Foundation honor and memorializes those astronauts who have made the ultimate sacrifice for the American space program, believing the conquest of space is worth the risk of life. And there is the Challenger that occurred in 1986, and then the X as in X-ray 13 for 1967. I think that says Sovin Weber. And then Commercial Plane, April 7th, 1991. And then the T-28 team, the Columbia 3T-3-197 on February 1st, 2003. And the Apollo 1, I think, mission, or 7, January 27th, 1967, and then the F-164, December 8th, 1967, and partnership with Florida Memorial Gardens. Thought that was pretty cool. So, going on, so that's my son James and my daughter Lydia. I don't know who they are. My daughter Lydia, my son James, I don't know who's in the astronaut suit. My daughter Lydia, my son James, and then like a little techie robot guy. And then, well, not a guy, but like a little robot build-up thingamabob. My daughter Lydia, my niece Marissa, I don't know who they are. And then this is at the Miami Zoo. And so that's my son James, my daughter, or my niece Marissa, and my daughter Lydia. So the Miami Zoo is one of those, you know, it's got different structures and stuff. And the animals is like any other place where they just gotta, oh, hey, how you doing? What's going on? So there's my daughter Lydia and my son James. I'm an extremely proud mom, I know. And so this is at the water thing where they get to play and stuff. My niece Marissa, my daughter Lydia, my son James, I don't know who that is. This is still at the Miami Zoo. My daughter Lydia, my son James, and my niece Marissa. And I was like, strike a pose! And that's what they did. My niece Marissa, don't know who that is. Or the kid, no, that behind it was my daughter. I didn't know who that was. And my daughter. My daughter Lydia, I don't know who that is. My daughter Lydia, I don't know who they are. My daughter Lydia, and I was like, you gotta get a picture with the koala bear, because I call you my koala bear. And so it was funny, because he was just kind of standing there, and I look at the little koala bear, you see the little koala bear booty, the little koala bear. And so she was excited. She's like, oh, it's a koala bear. I have no idea who's on the other side of that over there, of course. So then that's my son James, my daughter Lydia, and my niece Marissa, and my son James. I was like, yeah, go do that. And so that is Coral Castle, part of it, different areas that were moved with magnetic things to assist the different pieces in the structure. And so this is Coral Castle. So my niece Marissa, my son James, my daughter Lydia, my niece Marissa, my daughter Lydia, my son James, and then that's a cardboard cutout of a picture of the person who built that. And then so this is, ironically, so I already had this tattoo before going here. So you see the circle with the two crescent moons, and then I got that with the crescent. Isn't that kind of weird? It's kind of funny. So yeah, I before going there, I had that. So the most frequent question overheard here is, how did one man without assistance construct the Coral Castle? The answer is with an uncanny knowledge of the laws of leverage and balance, engineering and sculpture, and with the aid of simple tools such as metal falls, stack and tackle, rollers, jacks, wedges, sliding cables, sledges, and channels, and above all, infinite patience and tremendous imagination. The tools displayed here, many made from old auto parts, were used by Edward Leedskalnin in building the Coral Castle. While today the Coral Castle is a priceless work of art, it is believed that Leedskalnin's cost was minimal, since he excavated coral rock from the premises and recycled old auto parts. He lived on the second floor of this building in a very Spartan fashion, had no electricity or running water. He spent time in later years in the study of magnetism, astronomy, and radio, and was seen often in the Homestead Public Library. He died in 1951 at the age of 64. The Coral Castle, is privately owned and has been open to the public since 1953. It's a beautiful place. I would definitely live there if I could. That during the summertime, like during the warmer weather, like summertime, I'd actually be in Montana at the Vortex, and then, yeah, when it's technically cold, I'd be in Florida. Like if I could do that, that'd be awesome. Because yeah, that cabin, and then the Coral Castle, yeah. Where the Vortex is, absolutely personal thing. But anyway, so these are some of the days at the beach. So my daughter Lydia and my son James, I have no idea who those people are. That's the walkway from the across the street was the hotel or resort that we were staying in, and then that would be where we went in. My niece Marissa, my daughter Lydia, my son James. And so I was playing with the ocean because I was like, okay, you know, you guys haven't been in the ocean much, so let me. So my son James, my daughter Lydia, and my niece Marissa. My niece Marissa, my daughter Lydia, my son James, and then I don't know who those people are. My son James, I don't know who those people are. My son James, I don't know who that is. My niece Marissa, my son James, I don't know who they are, but in the ocean. Having fun with the waves. My daughter Lydia, my niece Marissa, the ocean. My son James, my daughter Lydia, my niece Marissa, and then like people that I don't know. By name at least. Maybe I've met them, I don't know. And then my niece Marissa, my daughter Lydia, my son James. So there, I was taking pictures, and you can see my shadow right there, taking the picture. So I was like, why not? Let me do that. And so then I was playing with the clouds at that point. And so that little sailboat up there, and play with the clouds and the water. And so that's my niece, Marissa, because she was just kind of, I was like, well, let me. And so that is actually called a morning glory flower, which is kind of funny because I told Captain Cupcake, he's also Captain, because he goes by his actually morning, like, have you ever heard of the morning glory? And he's like, no, what is it? I'm like, it's an extremely poisonous plant. Don't let that name fool you. And he was just like, oh, okay, fine. But it's pretty, and it smells pretty. So then I was playing with the clouds, and you can see the same area, just playing with the clouds, playing with the water and stuff like that. Took those pictures and posted them on my original Facebook account as well as my original FetLife account. As far as the pictures, not my children, obviously, in the FetLife. So that I got that close. That was during one of the snorkeling things. That close. That's not zoomed in for a little stingray down there. And that's my son James. And that is my daughter Lydia. And that's my son James. That's my son James. That's Marissa. My niece, my son James, and my daughter Lydia. And there's some dolphins from the dolphin excursion. And yeah, so then little dolphins swimming around and like, hey, what's going on? And then that's a rainbow that I saw and took a picture. And there's my daughter Lydia, my niece Marissa, and my son James. And this, my daughter Lydia, my niece Marissa, my son James, and this picture, we're on the way to the dolphin excursion, and I took this picture afterwards at one of the beaches. Okay, that was nice. And then this was waiting on the docks for the dolphin excursion time. So that's my niece Marissa, my son James, and my daughter Lydia, and there's a little pelican. And I was like, he's a sweetie. And so this is how, not zoomed in. That picture is not zoomed in. I am that close to that pelican. He's just standing there like, okay, I'm like, I want to pet you, but I know I can only take a picture, but you're so cute, little baby pelican. He was so cute and so sweet. He really was a cute little pelican. I mean, I'm sure he's still there, but so cute. So cute. Just stayed there. And like, I was literally, so like, it wasn't more than an arm's distance away. I was just like, and they wouldn't get closer to him. And I'm just like, he's just a pelican. Like, I mean, seriously. What's the problem? I mean, seriously. Yeah, Marissa had said at some point, because discussing various aspects, she's like, because we had discussed certain things when it came to family stuff, as well as some stuff when it came to scuba diving. She was like, I wish my mother was smarter like you. And I was like, I'm not that smart, but thank you. I also know what you mean in reference to that, because yeah, your mother is your mother, and that is what it is. Because yeah. But I also didn't treat Marissa the way the rest did. It was one of those, yes, I recognized. It is what it is. It is what it is. I'm very accepting, and it's just one of those, it did not matter to me that, and when Susie Marie Nichols Lopez, whenever she figured that out or found out, it's like, yes, that's your daughter, she was born that way, get over it. And this era, just get over it. I mean, realistically, it shouldn't have ever been an issue, but, you know, just get over it. You don't have to worry, at least you don't have to worry about her getting knocked up. So throw that out. She did not like that. She did not like that response. When I had that discussion with Susie, she did not. I was like, what? You don't have to worry. What is the worst that you got to worry about? That she just, you know, make sure that she, you know, uses certain forms of protection. But other than that, you don't have to worry about her getting knocked out. Believe me, she has an allergic reaction to that. So there's nothing wrong with it. It's just, that's just the way it is. And how can you talk like that? I just spoke the words. I don't understand what the problem is when it comes to understanding that. But yeah, on the way to the dolphin excursion, from Boca Raton to Key West, Florida, look how long that drive is. My daughter and my son, especially my daughter, I want a coconut. I can go to the store and get you a coconut. No, I want a coconut from a coconut tree. If there is a coconut on a coconut tree on public land that I can reach, I will get you a coconut. But I'm not climbing a coconut tree. I'm not climbing a coconut tree on somebody else's property. Because no. And so, you know, if there's one on public property and I don't have to climb a coconut tree, I will get you a coconut. I want a coconut. Is that coconut tree? No, that is not. What about that coconut tree? No. What about that coconut tree? No. That's private property. It is literally next to somebody's house. Oh, well, what about that coconut tree? No, not that coconut. So instead of hearing, are we there yet, for that entire time, it was, what about that coconut tree? No. What about that coconut tree? No. What about that coconut tree? No, that's not that's not on private. That's on private property. That's not on public property. But you know, it's short. Yeah. Well, I'm still not going on private property to take somebody's coconut from their coconut tree. Well, what about that tree? No. Is that a coconut tree? You know what a coconut tree looks like. Why are you asking me if that tree is a coconut tree when it's not a coconut tree? You know, like, okay, fine. So get out to the dolphin excursion. There was a point where dolphin had gone over, like done one of those dolphin leaps, and it was right over my daughter, right as I put the kiss. I thought, well, I'll just enjoy. And I mean, it was really cool. It was just when I wish I took a picture of that, because literally was, you know, over her head. I was like, okay, well, you know, you guys, that's cool. And so, but yeah, my niece and my son and my daughter, they enjoyed the whole thing. They had fun with the golden retriever that the female from Angel Charters, I think it was what it was. Angel Dolphin Charters, I think, specifically. You know, and so they had fun with the golden retriever that she had on board. I'm like, that's cool. And so on the way back from the whole thing, she had said, oh, like there's a broadcast that a storm's coming in. And I looked behind us and I was like, you don't have to worry about that. Just speed up. I'm just gonna push the clouds back from the hurricane that was coming in. And I just, just speed up a little bit. We'll be fine. You know, don't worry about it. Just, speed up a little. And got back to the dock just in the nick of time. You know, literally. She pulled her boat into the area for the machine to take it, the forklift to take it inside. And, you know, as we're running to the car is when the rain came. And I was like, that's right. All right. And so we get in the car, and then that's when, like, the full force comes in. And I'm like, all right, well, just sit here and talk for a little bit before I get on the road. So we talk a little bit, and then, of course, they did not forget about the coconuts. They were just like, I want a coconut. Well, you know, if I can't get one, that's like, and there has to be enough for everyone. There has to be one for each of you. Just everyone, like, no problem. And it has to be on public property. I'm not climbing a coconut tree, number one, because there are some bugs in those coconut trees that I do not want to be anywhere near. And number two, I'm not climbing on private property to get a coconut, like, at all. So start up the van. I had taken the white Kia Sedona to drive out there, and get out of the parking lot. Look, Mom, there's coconuts on the ground. Yes, there are. Of course there are coconuts on the ground. Well, at least I don't have to climb a tree. So, pulled the van over, got out of the car. Just remember how much I love you. Like, get out of the car, get just enough coconuts. Just enough coconuts. I think there were actually 5 total. Like all these for your grandmother, and you know, because she hasn't had a fresh coconut in a while, so you know, you each get your coconuts. They had their coconuts, and they were ecstatic, and you know, they actually just kept the coconuts. They never wanted to eat them, which was just one of those really. You wanted a coconut? You don't want to eat it? No, I just want to keep it. Oh. All those times you asked for coconut. Each time, all those hours. At least I didn't hear, are we there yet? At least I just heard, can I have a coconut? I want a coconut. Can I get a coconut? Get coconut out the coconut tree. No. And it's a lot better of a story when you really think about it, because how many people say, oh, I'm tired of hearing, are we there? Yeah, are we there? Yeah, are we there? Can I have a coconut? Is that a coconut tree? Yes. So, yeah, there was that. And so, yeah, that was right before going to the Vandenberg. That was literally the day before going to the Vandenberg. I set up the dolphin excursion for the day before, and then the day after was the Vandenberg. And but before the Vandenberg is when I went to the Boca Raton scuba diving trip. I'm pretty certain. I think it was. Yeah, that was so it was. So I looked at the date. So thanks for tuning in. Watch my official videos, like and share, and all that stuff. And have a good one.